and apatheist. Today's the first time I ever heard that word actually, but I think you might be interested to find out what that means. Thank you for agreeing to this interview, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what does it mean being an apatheist?
Alright, so as an apatheist, essentially what it means is to not care about the existence of a supreme deity. So just like how you have a theist who is, for instance, a Christian, who does care and devotes their life to that purpose. And then there's the atheist who does not believe that there is the existence. The apatheist just does not care. It's nonchalant, it's neutral. It doesn't really matter whether or not there is someone calling the shots in the universe, or it's the universe calling the shots in the universe, or there's nothing calling shots in the universe. Life just is as it is, and that's just how it should be.
That's interesting. Not caring. That's, as I said, it's the first time I've ever heard about that. It's always been just atheists not believing
Right.
or believing.
Polarity.
Yeah. And then
That's-
I've realized that life is really on a spectrum. So you just confirm that.
That's a polarized opinion in society. Right throughout high school, because all people used to always criticize me like, yo, you're an atheist. I'm like, no, I'm an apatheist. And they would be completely lost. To this day, I still see people from high school and they're still convinced, look, it's the atheist kid. I'm like, no, you mean the apatheist kid. I just didn't care. And I guess not caring comes across to some persons as not believing, because, as I said, the theist is a devotee. So it might seem like, as an apatheist, you being recluse towards them, not caring, it seems like you're trying to oppose or overthrow that by saying, this is not real, but it's logically grounded, and it's also intuitive, because it does take a certain level of intuition, as I say, to just let it go and just let it slide. So you're not putting labels to everything, but you're not taking away from it as well.
Okay. So, seeing that it's not a conventional belief system, how did you reach to this point?
Alright, so as a child, I used to ask myself several questions. I don't even know if every other child would ask themselves these questions, but there'd be questions similar to, am I the only person in the world that actually does exist? So I'm sitting here right now and someone walks up to me and they say morning and whatever not. But as soon as they walk down there, it's like freeze frame. They don't exist in my mind. So the thought really ran home to me one day when I was going home in a taxi. I saw this child and his mother, and once they stopped off and they came out of the car, I was like, how do I know that as soon as this vehicle drives off, they don't just freeze and somebody just comes, packs up that scene and just takes them elsewhere? Until like, how do I know someone's not toying with my mind? How do I know that there's not some being like having me in this little spaceship, just manipulating things and saying, okay, let me do this, let me do that? And then at some point in time, I was like, that being must be God. It must be God. It must be some being with, what I would call God or perceive as God, and maybe that God had another God, So then I started to realize that the universe is quantum in nature, and my imagination was. Yeah, my imagination. It makes sense. It's funny because I used to laugh at it a lot.
I'm not even laughing at you. I'm just laughing at the fact that people have these crazy ideas. Me just sit down and think some things. And I mean, it's nice to know that people really be looking like them thinking outside of the box,
But I really never. I think it was my mind's or my imagination's way of trying to understand the quantum nature of reality and how things kind of just seem to happen. So you're walking. And just like in anime, for those that watch anime or whatever, other cartoon or movie or whatever, like you have a sad moment in life and it starts to rain. Or you think something profound and the breeze just blew. You get me? Like things like that just happen. And I used to question like, why or how does that happen? Like it happens in the movies, and I understand the movies. What about real life? Like, why is it that I'm thinking about something with my parents, and I go out and I see an interaction with a son and his father, or something similar. And as I said, my mind's way of trying to understand that or decipher that or crack that was just to say like, yo, there's someone toying with your mind and they move stuff around and everything is not real and you're the only thing and the universe is a hologram.
So, when I was younger, or for the better part of my life, I was a Christian. And while I'm not apatheistic, I still stick to the belief in a deity. I stick to the belief in the Most High. I realized that my belief system was a bit flawed, and I broke away from that and decided that I am, just like you said about intuition, I was going to follow my intuition while still believing in the Most High. Now, how did you start off in a background that had a similar belief? Or?
Yeah. Both my parents were Christian. So growing up, it was always like going to church. Couldn't miss church. So I remember even when I just started like not wanting to go to church, it was like hell. Mommy wake you up every Sunday morning. Yo, wake up, time to go. I'm just like, no, I don't want to go to church. And it was always that kind of stuff. Everything was. I mean, grade 7, you do something at school. One of your church members them go back go see mommy and tell mommy, and you just never had any life outside of church. You never had any knowledge outside of church, and everything was just always in church. And that kind of
what they tell you to believe.
What they tell you to believe. So it was always restricted and constricted to just their beliefs, you living their life essentially. So at one point I said, no, I'm not gonna work. I need to do something for like me. Like what about my own individuality as a person, as a human being, my own sovereignty. And so in contemplating all of that, I had a friend who had similar questions as I did, and around the same time we kind of just stepped out of, I don't really want to say like we stepped out of the church, but like yeah, we literally just kind of stepped out of the church. Like it just never make any sense to me. We just seriously say, yo, this is crazy. Like we torturing ourselves. All of us are like thinking about this thing too much, just thinking too deeply into it, and so we just left it because it was not serving us. And in my opinion, if something isn't serving you, it just doesn't make sense. It's counterintuitive. And so that was how I kind of left the church. I just stepped out of it. I really just moved out. It was abrupt. It was probably not a mild transition, not a smooth transition. Mark you, because every Saturday and Sunday, Sunday, Mom used to come in and make up noise and used to be argument in the house and all of them something. But eventually I just realized you have to live this life for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to try and not to sin, to please the flesh. But then again, there's this whole concept that the flesh is sinful. My flesh not sinful. You
Mine is
mine is
sinful.
You understand? My flesh isn't sinful.
Mine
Not to
is
say
terribly simple.
no, not to say that there are things that I have done where God will look upon me and say, oh, you need to do better. But there are thoughts that I have, but it never came from me. It was originally programmed into my mind. So for instance, like, if somebody around in a rain and them drop, you want to laugh. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But watch this now. Where we get that programming there from?
I don't know, but
Media.
it just...
It's the media. We've been programmed to be sensitized to violence. So quite literally growing up, you see people getting whacked in the head and it's funny. And you can look back at Elsa Gates. There was this channel on YouTube, Elsa Gates, where they used to upload videos and it would only be on the kids' YouTube. And it would be really insane videos. Videos of say like a drunk dad dressed as Spider-Man coming home and breaking a bottle and stabbing the wife in front of the child. And they would even take it further to have like blood gush all over the child and the child is just there doing something silly. So it's like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 6-year-old watching that is going to just think, oh, this is humor.
Oh, yeah. So the brain is an organ that is neuroplastic, basically malleable when you're a kid, and it's something that can be programmed, especially by authority figures, because they're told, or we are told from we're young, that if somebody's older than you, you listen to them. And I believe that after a while, it's our responsibility to undo certain programming. When you have your own internal experience, you are able to understand the world from your eyes and realize what programming you need to get rid of and what you need to replace it with. Like, what has been your experience where that is concerned, like being programmed as a person?
Wow, as a person. Alright, so I've had two very remarkable experiences with being programmed as a person. First was when I was in church, and I was always a rebel, like always a rebel. Like, don't get me wrong, I was always a rebel. From day one, from birth, a rebel. I mean, rebel to the point where mommy used to feed me breast like I stopped feeding breast milk at 3 months because I used to chew on her breast and it used to bleed with my gums. So she had to like mash potatoes, mash yam, and all them something and give me. But then in church one day I remember sitting down and it's like the pastor literally said, "You were made here to do nothing. You were put here by God to do nothing but worship God." And it's like a rebel part of me just kicking. I was like, "Yo, that's bullshit, dog. Like, that's crap." But then the programming kicked back and I was like, "Boy, what you doing? You want to go hell?" You understand? And immediately I just became apologetic and I was like, "I'm sorry, God. I've sinned, blah blah." And then later on, now, after realizing that the whole idea of religion and the concrete structure that they have, this rigidity behind it, just never made sense. The second idea of or encounter I had with your mind being mind program, mind control, because you can't really control someone's mind. You just set something and set algorithms like a computer, like an AI. You see something enough times happening, it just becomes a norm. And that's why even with this whole COVID-19 thing, like where everybody has like protocols that they have to follow. So even though you find it really, really weird, because I still leave my house without my mask, and like by the time I reach home here, I remember I said, "Ross, you never carry the mask," and I have to go back for it because my mind has been programmed to. It's not been programmed. It's not been programmed like that. But nowadays, people are like, they don't leave the house without certain things. They don't leave it without them sanitizer, them gloves, them masks.
Yeah.
You get me? And it's like, even when I walk into like a supermarket, because I don't really go to the supermarket that frequently, but when I do, I just walk in. I don't remember that I need to do a temperature check and go sanitize my hand because I'm not used to that. And I have not programmed my mind to do that. So program is a hell of a thing. But the TV shows I used to watch, it just became so subtle. And again, as I mentioned earlier, violence is a very subtle thing that's easily passed into your mental program. So I was basically watching a lot of TV shows. One of them I can remember I used to watch, and I used to love this. I still love it. It's still cool. I still watch it, but not so much. I mean, it's done now anyways. But Spartacus.
You always ask me if I watch stuff, and I tell you no because I do not watch anything.
Right. But yeah, like for those of you that know Spartacus, you know it's really gory. Like it's really detailed, graphic, explicit. And I have no problem removing censorship in general. However, it was really graphic, and I never used to watch it with the same awareness that I have now of like, yo, that shit's wrong, dog. Like people are supposed to be killing people just like that. But
that's interesting that you said that, because I mean you said that you're apatheistic, and I mean most people associate religion or beliefs and everything with morality. So basically they say if you don't have God in you, then you don't know right or wrong. But it sounds like you know what's right from what's wrong. What governs that for you?
Empathy. That's all you need. And that's another thing why I believe that children should be raised up to make decisions for themselves, as well as find what's right for them. because we all possess empathy. It's hardwired into our brains for your own survival and understanding. You can't understand anything without empathy, because look at it this way. When I was younger, they brought me to see a goat get killed. They didn't bring me to see the goat get killed, but I saw them putting the goat in the pickup, and I was like, I'm going with that goat. I love the goat. And by the time we got to our destination, before I knew it, they just took the goat, tied the rope around the goat neck, and just pull it up to the tree and just got it. And I've never had goat since then. I've never had mutton, goat mutton, no. Because seeing it is like something just made me sick. Like something just revolted me about it. I wasn't, something just never sat right
So
with me.
right and wrong is kind of a gut thing.
It's a good thing. So you just know automatically, like you just know. The only way, behavior is something that's taught. So you can be taught to steal and be taught to think that it's okay, but at the same time, you have reason, and that's the functional reason. So you look at a child and you tell a child, how would you feel if someone took something from you? The child will automatically realize, I wouldn't feel good, and then start to question themselves, so why am I doing it? As if they were stealing. So yeah, morality is something that's built in all of us. It's built for my own survival and your own survival. Because if me and you were out in the wild together and like your finger get chopped off, me I'm gonna need to take care of you. You get me? So I'm gonna need to help you address that finger. You get me? So I'm going to need to understand how you feel so I can cater to your needs. So it's really a survival. It's something that's built in. So in my opinion, persons that don't utilize their empathy, they're at a selective disadvantage.
I agree with that.
So yeah.
Thank you for taking the time out to speak to me. I have learned a lot from you. And even though we may not share the same beliefs, I still respect your beliefs, and it doesn't prevent me from being your friend, because I still have a lot to learn from you. Your perspective is different because your experiences have been different from mine. And accepting your perspective gives me greater perspective. So thank you, and I hope you guys learned something today.